Welcome back to Amplified. Tonight, the three white men convicted of murdering 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery as he was jogging down a Brunswick, Georgia street have been sentenced to life in prison. Father and son, Gregory and Travis McMichael, won't ever see the outside again, while their neighbor, Roddie Bryan, will be eligible for parole. Joining me now to talk about exactly what these sentences mean and what, if anything, this could mean for the federal hate crimes charges they all face is BNC social justice correspondent Candace Kelley. Candace, welcome back to Amplified. Now, we top-line that the McMichaels will spend their lives in prison while Bryan would be eligible for parole. Get into the weeds with us on this. Remind us of the charges, the convictions, and how the judge might have come to his decision.
Well, you see, all three of these now convicted murderers, they were charged with felony murder. But only Travis McMichael is the one that got the charge of guilty on the malice murder, which is why it was a foregone conclusion that he would get 30 years with probably no parole. I don't think it was a surprise either that his father got the same thing, even though he did not have the gun in his hand. And there was the distinction. So that brings us down to Roddie Bryan. Now, he was also convicted of a felony murder, but that was because of the truck that he used, and he kidnapped him and he false imprisoned him with that particular truck. And so that's why he got that particular felony murder charge. And that was what he was granted, was that 30 years. But then he was eligible for parole. And this actually was a distinguishing fact, and it was requested by Lena Dunkowski because she was the one who said that he did have some type of contrition, if you will, in this process. And so that she requested that he get parole, but the father and son duo, they got no parole at all. They will get 30 years plus, and they will spend the rest of their lives in jail. So this was an interesting outcome of events, especially when you look at the judge and how he presented himself. He played really kind of cautiously. You couldn't really read him during the process of this whole of this jury selection, as well as the whole court case. But then today he really showed his emotion and showed this 1 minute of being very quiet to show the exact position that Ahmaud Arbery was in at the time, and that he was terrorized and felt that he was terrorized and put himself in the same shoes as him. So I think there was a very revealing day, not only from the family, but from the judge. But that's the breakdown of the charges and why they're all going to jail basically for the rest of their lives.
This was also one of those cases that was really revealing for America about who we are, who we've always been, what people have gotten away with, and even the laws on the books that ultimately created the conditions where these guys felt emboldened the citizens arrest law, like they were doing the right thing. Georgia has clearly since repealed that. But I want you to remind us, too, of a lot of the pain that was on display relative to the history that we've been invoking in conversation about what it looked like to have these three men who thought that they were justified in chasing this black man around for the sake of it in Georgia. What are some of the things that came up in this trial that you think really are going to resonate moving forward?
Well, you know, I think we got painful reminders all the way from jury selection on that this is just a system that is not built for us. I mean, just think about the makeup of the jury and the peremptory challenges and how they got rid of all of the people of color, and we ended up with one person of color. And now certainly that makes a difference in the long run, but not the way that it should in terms of the way the system should be set up in terms of serving justice. Fortunately, we did have a judge that was not like a judge on some of the other trials that we saw. But along the way, we were just reminded from the protesters that were outside to Attorney Kevin Gow, the defense attorney, who was always remarking upon things that absolutely just didn't make sense. And he was never sanctioned. He really wasn't called out. There weren't a lot of things that were done to him in terms of his position and role of being an attorney that's supposed to represent the court. There were a lot of times where he should have been sanctioned, where he should have been removed from the court. In terms of saying things about the reverends that were inside, the protesters that were outside. This was their First Amendment right to do that. But here we were in a community that was hurting. Here we were in a community that wasn't going to let go and wanted to remind not just Georgia, but the nation that it doesn't only matter what goes on inside of the courtroom, but it matters what goes on outside of the courtroom too. And we've seen that over the past few years about how when people hit the ground running, boots on the ground, it absolutely makes a difference. I also think what was very surprising for defense attorneys, especially, was the verdict itself. While they thought that there were no Bubbas and there were no people who looked like their particular defendants on trial, I also think that in their heads, they thought that they were going to get the verdict that they wanted because it was mostly white. But surprise, surprise, things happen in a very different way. And I think that shift is indicative of where we are in the court system today. I mean, not just necessarily the system as a whole, but we look at it as a case by case basis and hopefully say to ourselves that the needle is being moved just a little bit, but we still have to do our jobs on the outside and fight for justice, or else, this is a case that never would have even happened, right? We never would have had these charges because the DA at the beginning didn't think that the charges stuck. But what happened? Ahmaud Arbery's family and his mother, his father, they got to work and they made sure that everybody knew about this. And this is why now the former DA has been brought up on charges herself.
I was just about to ask you about that because so many things here are just disgusting with regards to the system, and hopefully, create an opportunity for some repair. I mentioned that the Georgia did go ahead and dial back the citizen's arrest law that was antiquated, that really was about, white men being able to have these slave patrols and essentially go grab people is kind of the heart of what that was. We don't have that there anymore. Also, you have a situation where this wouldn't have even come to trial, like you said, because the original DA wasn't really going to bring it. And then there was also some question of conflict of interest that wasn't disclosed as well around the early stages of the investigations into this case. So I'm curious, do you have any sense or an update on where we might be with regarding, the accountability to those who tried to hold this back in the first place?
Well, we are going to see these charges come into fruition in terms of a full out trial with this particular DA. We're also going to see Ahmaud Arbery's mother carry out her particular lawsuit against a number of people who she felt did not hold their duty. In fact, there were a couple of people who took the stand during this trial that she is in the process of suing, saying that they did not carry out their goals, they didn't uphold their position that they were sworn in to do, and that is uphold justice and bring charges where possible without any bias, any conflict. And there were so many people, there are about 14 named in the lawsuit, that did not do that. So we have to see how that comes out. And we also have to see how this hate crimes charge comes out during the middle of February to figure out what was going on in terms of their heads and how race is going to be a part of it. Now, we know that race was and did play an underpinning in the state court case, but on the federal level, we're definitely going to see with this hate crime charges that race played a part in it. We're going to hear what they said on Facebook, what they said at the time of the killing, what they texted about, the fact that they called Ahmaud Arbery out of their name, and that's also a very important part too. So we have the DA being sued, we have the lawsuit brought by Ahmaud Arbery's mother, and then we also have the federal hate crimes charges. So this case is certainly not done. A lot more to come. And
I want to talk about just the advocacy and those personal statements that were a part of this trial, because so many times families lose someone at the hands of the state and don't have a whole lot of recourse. But then there are instances where we see families step up and really go to bat for their loved one. In this case, Ahmaud's parents and his sister actually delivered impact statements to the courts. I actually want to play Wanda Cooper Jones, Ahmaud's mother's sound. And on the other side, I want you to talk about how it might have impacted sentencing and certainly the federal hate crimes piece. Here, let's listen to this.
These men have chose to lie and attack my son and his surviving family. They each have no remorse and do not deserve any leniency. This wasn't a case of mistaken identity or mistaken fact. They chose to target my son because they didn't want him in their community.
So powerful. What are your thoughts?
It really is. And such grace. And it's a shame that she had to have such grace. We know she's mad. We know she's mad, but she had to hold it together in order to make a formidable impact statement, which she did. And Ahmaud's sister also made a really beautiful poetic statement just about the Black body and how wonderful she thought he was, and all of his beauty and his skin color and the shape of his nose and the twist in his hair, all of these things that we find beautiful, that these three white men found a reason, a compelling reason, to shoot him dead and say, you do not belong in this community. So I think that all of this in consideration certainly made an impact on the judge, and for all of us just hearing how important this young man was to his family and now the community at large. And when we think about the federal hate crimes, as you mentioned, that will come along, listen, Ahmaud Arbery's family, his mother said, no, we do not want a plea deal. And both sides have to agree to a plea deal. They said no. Even though they have to go through this process again, she said, we need it for it to be on record. We need it to make a difference. I am not going to let these men get off by making a plea deal, spending time in a nicer federal prison. They're going to see this from A to Z. As she said, you went through the motions to carry out this crime. Now you're going to go through the motions to carry out this sentence, to carry out this court proceeding, because all of this belongs to you. You did it to yourself.
Well, I can't say that anything is just about this entire situation, but amen to accountability. Candace Kelley, thank you so much for joining me to break it all down here on Amplified. Appreciate you.